Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow and who help them, John. Just one of those that help them grow. Community Bank Reporter, American Banker. Still got a lot of fun stuff, John. You and I didn't talk about this, but 2021, I get to see one bank closure. Am I right on that?
You're right on that. In fact, I think there was one all of last year.
Yeah.
So,
so when people ask me what's the difference between 2008, 2020, 21, we're not closing banks like we did back in the Great Recession. So,
no.
which is good. Yeah. Anyway, John, welcome. We'd love to have your insights. We've got a bunch of news. You know how to ask questions. We're going to deal with a lot of questions. There's your certificate number one. What percentage of your PPP loan apps over $2 million have been forgiven? And these are percentage that have been submitted. So not all, just do the cohort of $2 million.
I'm going to guess that very few.
There you go. 80%.
Right.
Yeah, based on what I'm hearing, that's not surprising at all. I have hardly heard anybody that's got these passed. We've done this poll on a couple times, and each time we've only had a few people really say that they got this passed. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Right.
Number two, now we want to up it. What percentage of your PPP loans over $5 million have been forgiven? Again, compare the same cohort.
Going to guess very, very few.
Well, that's not surprising to you. I guess what we're surprised is a couple of people have had them forgiven, John.
Well, that's true, but I wonder, how many they had in the first place. It could be a case where they had relatively few. I don't know how many. There were relatively few large loans like that made. Period. So. But
how many, Katie, do you know offhand? Also, a lot of those loans to $10 million were voluntarily repaid as well. So
yeah,
I don't know off the top of my head. I know they just came out, I think yesterday, saying the average loan size now is only $75,000. So I'm imagining there's not a whole lot of those above that $5 million mark.
The reason why we're asking this question, John, is the consensus is, and I like your feedback on this, is if it's over $5 million, the lender and the borrower need to jump through a lot more hoops than if it's a $78,000 loan, correct?
Yes. I was just talking with a banker about that, and he was saying the information requests are significant. And the time that it's taking for the agency to render a decision is also, unfortunately, significant.
So they're really going through these carefully. Number three, have you been able to take advantage of the new hold code procedures released yesterday? Real quick, Katie, what were those? What was the new procedure?
Yeah, so the big portion of that new process that the SBA released yesterday, it really allows lenders to handle some of those hold codes on their own using some certifications. And I'm glad to see we've got 48% who've said yes. I believe they only rolled that out this morning. So I'm glad it's hopefully going to work a little better for them. I know there's still, of course, you got to go through each of those loans. And if they've got multiple hold codes, you might have some that you're handling as a lender with certifications, and there's others that you might have to send out to the SBA to handle. But you do need to clear all those in order to get that second draw loan number. So a lot of people are having to handle those. It's also slowing down the process for forgiveness. So hopefully this will help for forgiveness as well.
John, you'd be interested in this. We ran a poll earlier in the week that we said, hey, do you believe one of the reasons why your 7(a) loan production is down is because of your PPP logistical infrastructure needs? And what was that percentage? Well over 50%, Katie?
I don't recall.
Yeah, it was, I think 3/4 said, yeah, the reason why our 7(a) is down is we're dealing with all this PPP stuff. Which is consistent with your reporting, yeah.
I understand it, but one of the things I'd like to take a look at in the next day or so I've been making a list. It's getting fairly long of banks that are, planning to ramp up SBA, conventional SBA. So they are beginning to look past PPP. Some of them.
Absolutely. Your report. Tell us about your latest reporting, John.
This was sort of a matter-of-fact story. The reason we wrote it is we were surprised at the just at the level of, I guess, the proportion of second draw loans. What we didn't and probably should have mentioned in the story also is, they had that week long at the very beginning of once the program was rolled out, that roughly week where it was devoted to CDFIs, it was devoted to, smaller institutions, presumably, hopefully to, make a lot of smaller loans to newer, to businesses that have been left out in the first round. But obviously for the whole of the program through February 7th, it's been, there's been a massive tilt towards second draw loans. There's no other way to describe it. A lot of banks, just every bank we talk to, with one exception, we're talking 85-90% second draw loans.
Opinion, is that good, bad? Just these are the facts, ma'am?
I think it's sort of reflective of two things, and several of the bankers said this. The level of need in certain industries, obviously the hardest hit industries, everyone knows what they are, the food services, the hospitality, entertainment. So there's massive levels of need, and it's being met. But also, perhaps a little bit that a lot of businesses were served during the first phase of this between April and August. And then the last is it's just a little bit tough to, these are, the ones that are being served now are the very smallest businesses, sole proprietors, others, and they have the most tenuous links to the banking system. So they're, it's a little bit tough to serve them. It takes marketing, it takes partnerships, but they still have quite a bit of time left. So hopefully that will, the dollar number at least will go up.
I don't have the answer, so I'm going to throw it to you, to both you and Katie, which is, do we know what percentage of original PPP borrowers are ineligible for second draw loans?
I can guess. Anecdotally, what most bankers are saying, for instance, I spoke to one, and they did quite a bit of first draw lending, and they were saying they believe at least 60% of their loans are eligible for second draw.
Really? That's yeah. I was sort of thinking 50%. Katie, do you have any insights on that? Anything?
Yeah, I was trying to think about it. I haven't seen any official numbers or anything, same as John, but thinking about the credit report that the Fed put out like a couple weeks ago, I really think probably you're about right with that 50%, because there were a lot of people who ended up having to spend that money on other things, and they're not getting forgiveness. There's a lot of people that had to get rid of employees because it did take a while to get the second round up and running. So I think 50% or around there sounds about right.
I'm interested in this last comment, John. I certainly understand hospitality and food. I would have not guessed construction 14%. I thought construction was doing well.
I guess it's a question of around the country where it is. I would imagine in some of the states that have significant shutdowns, that's been affected. And it might be seasonal. That did surprise me a little bit as well.
Yeah, you're right. I understand in the Northeast it's been having some wonderful weather.
Yeah.
Katie, tell us what the House is up to.
Yeah, so yesterday the House Small Business Committee approved legislation that would provide about $50 billion in emergency aid to small businesses. And the idea was that they were going to work through this bill, underline it, rewrite portions of it, and then hand it back to be part of a more comprehensive aid package. So they're focusing on that small business portion of it, and they just got that portion approved. The text has been released on the Small Business Committee's website, so you can go ahead and read the bill if you want. They also have a nice section by section that makes it a little faster to go through that. That's only about 3 pages, so you should be able to read that real quick. But I think we have another slide that's going to go into the details on what's in that.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm interested in number 3, John and Katie. What's in? We have a new program, $25 billion. Anybody know the details of that?
I don't know the exact details of that one. I was mostly focused on the Paycheck Protection Program funding and how that works. You could probably go ahead and read into it some more, but I just don't know it off the top of my head. What they're wanting to do with Paycheck Protection Program is add a little over $7 billion in funding. And the reason for that is they want to increase really who can get a loan. They want to increase it for nonprofits. They also want to help for internet publishing organizations. So really it's for that. There's not, as far as I'm aware, an extension to the deadline yet. So that's primarily going to be for that purpose, for expanding who can get a loan.
Yeah. From your perch, John, is this 50 billion? Is that right amount? Too much? Too little? Too soon to tell to make an opinion?
I think it's number one. It seems like the right amount, because you have to remember it's 50 billion added on to the money that was provided in December. So the whole PPP package, 284. I guess I'm just interested. They've singled out in this bill. They've done a lot of singling out of sorry about that.
No worries.
They've done a lot of singling out of industries that are going to get in the restaurant one is significant.
Yeah.
And you wonder what about the others, because and it's a tough thing for them, because they're certainly it's absolutely certain that the restaurant industry needs assistance. So
John, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Orange County, California, and he's still under, you can't do indoor dining, but he's opened it up. And he said, well, the worst they can do is they can fine me and pull my liquor license. But he said, Bob, if I don't open up, I'm going to lose my liquor license anyway.
Yes.
So,
there's lots of stories like that all over.
Yeah, that's not unusual. Lance and I were called into the principal's office on this, and we misspoke. We didn't make a mistake. We simply misspoke. Katie, what is the rule that we should be following as lenders?
So I believe there is a way to calculate for businesses that were in operation February 15th, but they started early 2020. I think we just have that flat out on the screen here. I don't think it's a common calculation, to be honest, and that's probably why Lance doesn't know it. It's just, I don't think I've heard hardly any loans that have passed the mark that were in this situation.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you can compare second, third, fourth quarter 2020 with first quarter 2020 if they weren't in operation in 2019. That's the bottom line. Let's go. We have a bunch of questions. Let's go to them. Patricia, is anybody else having problems with 10% of loans not being accepted by the SBA portal? That's what we call some that are just getting hung up in there. And the answer is yes, Patricia, that we're getting a lot of comments on this. Yeah, Lori, go ahead. Pile on, Lori. Yes, we were wrong on that. Go ahead. You change the slides. Yeah, thank you. But we love it. We actually, if you think about it, John, if that's the only mistake we've made in the last 30 days, we're doing okay.
Yes.
I'll hold my hat on that one. Let's see. Question from Debbie. Has anybody received forgiveness or any correspondence from SBA on a PPP loan that required the loan necessity questionnaire? No clue on that. Kate, did you have an opinion?
I've heard a handful of people say they've received these. If you have a loan over that $2 million mark, you're going to get these. There's really no question about that. I have heard a couple people say that they've had to do these on smaller loans. I think that's just spot checking. But yeah, we are hearing that people are having to do those.
John, some interesting comments have come in. So Vicky says we are a non-depository CDFI, and our first and second draws are about 50-50. So
No,
that's,
I understand, because those are the type of institutions that are really focusing on the first draws. But the banks, and I'm not faulting the banks at all. It just surprised us, the level of second draw, the proportion. That's obviously $101 billion, so it's obviously about 93%, just under 93% of the funding has gone to second draws.
and that Shane is asking that is, do you know how much funding do we have available in the PPP program? I don't know offhand, other than we're not going to run out. That's
see, that was brought up in the story. I wish I could remember which one of the bankers mentioned this. Because of the error codes and the the situation that the other questioner brought up with loans just getting hung up in the system for one reason or another. How much of you'd think 284 minus 101 leaves $183 billion, but how much of that $183 billion is spoken for in these loans that are in the system, waiting to be sort of shaken free, and eventually I'm sure they will be. So that's why the funding picture, he worried, is a little bit cloudy, but even if that's $25 billion, that still leaves $150 billion. So it would seem that there's probably enough.
Katie, this is a question from Laura. I don't know the answer. We'll throw it to Katie and John. We may have to wait for Lance's. So we have a new PPP applicant. They were sole proprietorship, but they incorporated in May of 2020. They got a new tax ID number, same operation. Everything's the same, except they're now a LLC. Are they eligible?
Yes, they should be. Based on the information here, it sounds like they will be. The SBA even mentioned that this is getting to be pretty common. You're seeing some businesses change their way they're handling things. You saw a lot of people that were using their social security number before. When they're applying for their second draw, they're now using a EIN just to try to make it look more professional, and that should be just fine.
Again, change of ownership is murky. Kathy wants to know, we have a change of ownership, if the new buyer would be eligible for a first draw loan because the seller didn't apply. The business was in operation on 2/15, and the new owner would use the payroll records from the old business to justify the amount. Are they eligible?
I
Think so?
I was going to say, why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The loan
Yeah, I mean, again, if we go back to the purpose is to keep employees, so that's our best guess. John, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Lance is going to be doing this webinar. If you want to join us, just send me an email at bob@colemanreport.com, and we'll do all the paperwork on that. Katie, you finished up your hold guide. Are you proud of it? Tell me what you did.
There's a lot of information the SBA gave us yesterday, so I've added probably about 6 or 7 pages to this, just detailing the different ways you can handle a hold code. It walks you through which one to use if you're going to be doing that with a lender certification, or if you're sending it to the SBA, when you need to contact the SBA to get it handled through the messaging system, things like that. So that's in there, as well as all the things that are listed here with hold code statistics and a really detailed way of how to handle those hold codes and the list of hold codes that we know about.
And that guide's available for sale separately, but it's included in this webinar. Joseph, let's make sure John gets a copy of that. as well. How many pages is it, Katie? It's a PDF.
I don't have the PDF in front of me. I think we went from 20 pages to maybe 26, 27 pages, something like that.
About 30 pages, yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you very much. Katie, good to see you as always. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great day.